And good morning, everyone. It is 7:08 a.m., and we are back here on KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. And now, in the hot seat.
Should I just stand up?
You can if you like. Councilman Massengale with us this morning. And I was saying the slings and arrows have already started before you've even said a word.
How did you end up coming this day? You know, you could have gotten.
Actually, when we booked this, I was looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Day. So I'm excited to be here either way.
Well, I want to start with the Auditorium Coliseum, and I cannot figure out what's up with Dan Jackson over at Channel 11. Man, he is talking nasty about you guys down at the council. I mean, he's been on this for some time now, and I think he is doing a disservice to the community. That's my own personal opinion. We all have one. Could be wrong. But I think he's providing a lot of misinformation. But he's really had some really ugly and nasty things to say about this city council.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in relationship to this Auditorium Coliseum.
Yeah, I agree. I can't follow Dan's logic, and I can't speak for Mr. Jackson. The move on the Auditorium Coliseum seems logical to me. It seems like a physically conservative move to make a decision to stop using a building that has outlived its useful life.
That's exactly right. And that's my opinion. The building's 65, 70 years old. Its time has come, and it is gone. And it's something that we need to move on from.
Yeah. Those that say we should keep it and reinvest in it, they don't present a plan on how to fund that reinvestment. We know that it needs a minimum of about $15 million. And if you had $15 million to spend on it, you'd see it on things like a new roof, which makes it look the same. And you'd have to go in and address the ADA issues that we have in that, which are going to change some ramps and put some elevators in, which at the end of the day makes it mostly look the same. And then you're going to have to figure out a way to bring your bathrooms up to code, which would make you would see a difference there. And then you'd put some new air handlers in. So you'd spend that money and you'd still have a building built in the 50s.
No,
That's
wait. Which one are you talking about? The Coliseum?
Either one.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say because the new Buddy Holly Center is going to make the auditorium obsolete.
Sure.
I mean, nobody's even going to want to be there with the Buddy Holly Center.
Why would we update the auditorium? Now, the Coliseum, maybe. But the auditorium, it has no purpose, even if it were upgraded. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, the market would be very slim for those that would use it. It would be probably be a low-grade facility if that. I guess if you put the money in it, you couldn't rent it at low rent. But there's other options. I mean, when Buddy Holly comes online, your premier shows and all those types of events are going to utilize that facility. But there's other options. School districts just renovated all their auditoriums, and those are at times, or they were when I was on the school board, they were for rent. So there's other options.
Let me ask you this. So one of the things that he talked about was that there are other revenues generated from concessions and alcohol sales at the Coliseum and Auditorium.
Yeah, we're talking about Dan Jackson.
Right. What?
At Channel 11.
Right. What amounts would that be that would not be in that $700,000?
What events is he talking about?
Well, I guess he's referencing the revenues that Civic Lubbock would bring in from alcohol sales, since they own the license. They own the license at the Civic Center and the Coliseum Auditorium facilities. If I recall, I think the net revenue on that is $13,000 on those alcohol sales.
That doesn't go very far, does it?
No. That's why it's hard to follow his logic. If you want to criticize the thought of abandoning the Coliseum Auditorium and conveying it to tech, you have to provide a solution, and there's been no good solutions presented in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm of the same opinion, and it seems to me, I mean, it's totally as clear as a bell in my head of what needs to happen here. How do you think the vote's going to go? Do you have a sense?
I hesitate to say my sense is that most of the community thinks like you do. I think they get it. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense to keep a building. They've seen it. They know they haven't been in it in years.
Nobody's using it.
Yeah, it's not like, in the 80s, I graduated late 80s from high school. I graduated from high school there. When I graduated from Texas Tech, I graduated from Texas Tech there. We don't have those events there anymore. Right. We're not utilizing the facility. So I think most people get it.
So the other thing is he says to tear down the auditorium, make parking there, and to put $5 million into the Coliseum, and that there are no ADA issues there.
I think he's wrong. He's wrong on that. I mean, I can tell you that I've had personal experience with ADA issues in public facilities. Our ramps are not to grade. I mean, your bathrooms aren't ADA compliant, so I don't know where he gets his information.
And my understanding is that they would have to put, to get it ADA compliant, you'd have to put 2 elevators inside the Coliseum.
You would. You'd have to modify, take seats out, do something to figure out how to structurally get elevators inside, because there are no elevators today.
Wow. That would not be cheap.
So, I mean, just looking at this, that's 3 different things that are his arguments that are not holding water.
Right, I agree.
So that was my point, because I actually took a tour with Jeff Griffith, and he showed me these things. I mean, it is not ADA compliant. The ramps are too steep. The bathrooms have stairs going to them. Some of the bathrooms have stairs going up to them. There are no elevators. There is no place to put ADA. If someone's in a wheelchair, there's nowhere to put them. I mean, they would literally have to sit out on the ramp. I mean, there are compliant issues as far as
there's no
ADA
way to
is
get
concerned.
an elevator up the stairs right now, is there? I mean, if not an elevator.
I was just trying to picture that.
no way to get a wheelchair.
That's right.
Well, I mean,
up the stairs. So someone in a wheelchair literally couldn't go to an event at the Coliseum.
Well, just walking around the Coliseum, just in a circle around the outside,
you're right,
is too much of a grade for
you would have to adjust that. You're right. The concourse would have to be adjusted. Everything, you'd tear out a lot of concrete and rebuild it. You'd have to build some mechanical lifts. It would just be, I've called it lipstick on a pig. I'll just call it what it is. That's
exactly what it is.
And that's what you'd be doing to it. And, tech has a use for it. They need it.
Dr. Skubinik said on this show that
sure.
he would, and I remember it was several $1 million that they've already checked, and it's going to cost to tear it down.
They have an early estimate of $4 million.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
I don't know that it would take more than that, but remember that is a building built to civil defense standards when it was built.
Yep.
And it's got some concrete in it, but
the tech would have to pay $4 million to tear it down.
Sure.
And they want to build dormitories.
Yeah, they need the space, and I think it's time. And I can't.
One other thing, Councilman.
Go ahead.
A comment was that council says that they're spending $700,000 a year to maintain it, and that is just totally wrong.
I mean, our financials get audited. We review them in the public. I mean, I guess if they're wrong, you need to point out where they're wrong. But, when you look at insurance and utilities, and you do have – I mean, it is a large facility. You have to have city representatives there. There's maintenance still. There's minimum requirements of maintenance. You have to fix some things.
What about security?
I'm sure there's security costs in there, but it doesn't take long to add up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that about covers it as far as the Coliseum Auditorium, but that's a big issue. Well, let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about annexation. That's next on our list. It's kind of got some of the public kind of wadded up a little bit. News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM. We are KFYO Mornings. Dave King, Matt Martin. Joining us this morning is live here in the studio. By the way, we're broadcasting from the Thacker Jewelry Studios. Custom jewelry, engagement rings, and more. ThackerJewelry.com, place to go. We have in the studio with us live this morning is Councilman and Massengale, who is fresh from the council meeting last night. We've been talking about the Auditorium and Coliseum issue. We got some text messages there, Matt, that we probably should read next because we're going to talk about annexation.
Yeah. Oh, you want to get into the ones for the council? Let's see. This says the city council decides to spend what will eventually be $100 million on a useless building downtown, but turn over something that can make revenue. Tech owns the city council. They also had said, let's see, is the city writing your talking points now? To which I did. I don't usually reply to texts, but I did this one. I said, the city is not writing our talking points, okay? This is one time that me and the city agree. The conservative move is to get rid of these things, get the city out of the entertainment industry, and allow the city to use any funds that it gets from that for things that the city is supposed to be working on, streets and other things.
And we believe that it's a white elephant.
So my point is, if there is a need for something like that, and there can be money made in something like that, then the private sector will build what is needed. That's where I come from.
And I agree with you. Matt and I don't often agree.
Well, let me make a comment to that. The comment about the Citizens Tower costing $100 million. I would encourage people to, as they engage and consider their vote. And let me also, before I say this, is be sure and go exercise your right to vote. It's so easy not to go vote. Less than 10% of our people, registered voters, at times vote. And, you know, we want you to vote. Yes or no, however you feel about it. We want you to get educated, and don't base your decision on what you hear from editorial commentary, okay? The truth's not there. Call your councilman, call the mayor's office. If you have questions, we'll give you the facts so you can make a good decision. But Citizens Tower is not going to cost $100 million. That's a product of another editorial commentary, I believe, that misinformation. So anyway, I just think make sure you educate yourself.
And that's not this council's deal.
Well,
you inherited Citizens Tower.
Well, Citizens Tower was decided, and the bonds were sold by a prior council. There's limitations on what you can do with that bond money. So, you know, we decided at that point, since you couldn't do anything else with the money, and we think at the end of the day, there's a lot of good in Citizens Tower by consolidating City Hall. This council modified the PD plan, if you'll recall. The old City Hall is now going to be South Plains College, and we're going to build substations. So, but you're right. Citizens Tower was a project started prior to this council.
And another thing that I would mention is the desperate need to upgrade downtown Lubbock. And gosh, the millions that it would have cost to tear that building down, and nobody wanted the building, is my memory.
You're right. As a matter of fact, we're doing the demo this weekend on the parking garage over there. So if you're down around town, we'll have some of that blocked off. But at the end of the day, Citizens Tower will be a catalytic project that will encourage more development downtown, and it'll be nice for people to come do their business with their local government.
Well, I tell you from my perspective, and I agree with you on this, Councilman. There's a lot of editorial comment out there that's just not correct, and I think that it has really left a bad taste in a lot of citizens' mouths that are listening to that. And another is this annexation. Man, this is a subject that gets the citizens of Lubbock fired up, and I don't think that they fully understand this issue. Like there's so many other issues they don't fully understand. They've been getting fake news. I mean, is that fair?
Yeah,
editorial comment that's just inaccurate.
There's no doubt that fake news is alive and well in Lubbock, Texas. You know, the annexation can be a painful process. I've never done an annexation. I've learned a lot in this process. You know, what council is working on right now is a project started by a prior council. We have a citizens-led annexation and growth committee in which they recommend areas that they think are most likely for the city to grow, and they submit those. They've studied those for several months and submit those areas to the city council. And so last night could have been what we think possibly could have been the last council meeting in this process, but we delayed. We approved one of them, and the one we approved is the one north of Marcia Sharp, borders Alcove on the west, it comes almost to Upland on the east, 34th Street on the north. That one was approved. There's another one that was considered. It's the one that borders Frankfort on the west. It's Ursuline cuts through it. It's Kent Street on the north. That one was presented for council approval, and there was an amendment on the dais to actually cut a hole in part of that annexation. It takes out a neighborhood. That amendment was voted down, and interestingly enough, the whole annexation was voted down. Let's talk about some more of this.
Yeah, we'll come back and talk more about annexation after this break. It is 7:29 here on KFYO Mornings. We'll be right back with more Councilman Massengale. News Talk, 95.1 FM, 790 AM. This is KFYO Mornings. Dave King and Matt Martin right here at your service at 7:36 AM. And we're visiting with Councilman Steve Massengale this morning, and we're talking about annexation. Now, that's a subject that kind of makes my eyes glaze over a bit, but I do understand from the text messages that we're getting. I understand how there's so many people who are upset about the council annexing them. This is from the 241 prefix that's texted and says, what part of fake news about the business that has been paying taxes for 19 years and can't get a water line? And then we have another one from the 401 prefix that says, I don't have fake news about the proposed annexation. I am one of those citizens in those areas. I still say we did not petition for annexation. Leave us out of your plans. We don't want to be part of the city. We planned it that way. We don't care if some little builder decides that he wants to develop one part of this land. We don't want to be annexed, okay?
Sure. First, let me say my fake news reference was not in regards to the annexation. Secondly, they're correct. They did not petition to be annexed. Again, these are involuntary annexations that are a recommendation, again, from our citizen-led Annexation and Growth Committee. Annexation is a part of the zoning process. It protects neighborhoods. It protects property value. It makes sure that you can have your home in a neighborhood with other homes like yours and not have a car lot next to you or
protects the value of your property.
It's about quality of life and it's about value of property. These annexations are painful. They're painful for the council, and they're certainly painful for those that are subject to the annexation. These are decisions that this council has the burden of making that have long-term impact, so that we know that when we are developing as a city, we have control of those things that we think are going to be the next areas of growth. We can decide and help on thoroughfares. We can put the utilities where they need to be. We can bring public safety and provide those services and other basic services that the city's there to provide, and make sure that the city develops so that it makes sense and it's pleasing to those that would eventually buy that property. So I get it. The annexation process is certainly in the short term painful.
But one thing that I would wonder for those who are so vehemently opposed to it, when you moved to that area just outside the city of Lubbock, did you really believe that the city was not going to eventually grow out to you?
Yeah,
the city can't grow around you.
Right. Yeah. There is the inevitability of a growing city, and we're blessed to be a growing city, is that it's going to grow. Past these annexations, I don't know what the stomach of the council would be, but if you were living right outside the city limits, or the city limits grew to you, and maybe you bought your property 50 years ago, and maybe we all thought at 50 years ago the city wouldn't grow out there, but it has. And, it's the product of a vibrant economy.
Yeah. And we have another texter this morning that says we have an engineer in our neighborhood watching all of those things that you just listed, and we have them handled. Our homeowners association watches the value and structure of houses and property.
Yeah, but it doesn't. So here's the thing: a city has to grow, and when it grows, it has to plan its growth. And I'm not backing up the annexation, so don't take it that way. I'm just trying to see things from the eyes of the city. And as the city grows, it has to ensure that certain roads are main thoroughfares. It has to make sure that other roads are private or are ones for the citizens. I mean, it's just, you can't just throw roads out there and have people going wherever. The city, as Lubbock's actually designed very well. You've got your 4th Street, your 19th Street, your 34th Street, your 50th Street, your 82nd Street to everything is set up to where you know where your businesses are, you know where your homes are, you know where everything else is. And I understand, but this is part of the growing pain process of Lubbock growing, and they have to be ahead of that to keep everything in order.
Lubbock is very well laid out. Unlike most cities, everything runs north-south, east-west.
It's laid out probably as well laid out as any community. So let's talk a little bit about what we did last night.
Okay, real quickly, another emailer says quality of life is not being annexed.
Well,
I don't know.
I understand that.
Argue that.
I mean, my parents live out in the county, and they like it there, but they're way out there. So,
annexation, Coliseum, crony capitalism.
Well, anyway.
Okay,
I mean, we read them as we get them.
Understand.
Let's move on. Just to the important stuff.
So let's just understand what happened last night. We approved the one I mentioned. That's back kind of southwest part of town, north of Marcia Sharp. This one that
you save that until after. I'm sorry, we got another break.
Okay, I'll jump right into this when we come back out of the break.
We'll be right back. And we're back at 7:46 a.m. here on KFYO Mornings. Dave King, Matt Martin, and I'm sorry, Matt and I have talked way too long. Councilman Massengale, we're going to throw this open to you and let you speak here.
Well, thanks, Dave. I just want to visit with you or tell your listeners what we did last night, because I think there's a headline in the paper that talks about it. And so there's 3 annexation areas up for approval. Only one got approved last night. One was not approved out by the airport, but will be on the next council agenda because we didn't have the exact meets and bounds in the legal description. That's some areas that borders the right-of-way on I-27 and takes in some property at the airport that, believe it or not, wasn't in the city limits. There were some modifications on that one as we worked to find balance between property rights and what's right for annexation, and we were able to help some folks out, some county residents out on that one. The one that will get the most attention is this one that's considered Area F, which is west of Frankfurt. It's bordered by Kent Street on the north and part of Grinnell on the south. There was an amendment on the dais to cut out a specific neighborhood, which would create a donut hole inside the annexation. I can't support creating a donut hole. It creates all kinds of complexities. The amendment was voted down, and then when the motion to approve the annexation was called up, the whole annexation was voted down. So now that makes it dead in the water. We took a recess. We came back. The motion was made to reconsider this item, and so there's been some talk about citizens left, the ones that were concerned about this annexation, and then this got brought up after the fact. I didn't know this was going to get brought up. And I made the motion after the approval to reconsider the item to postpone it to the next meeting so those concerned could at least still be listen to the discussion. So this one will also be on, I believe that's the May 14th meeting, I think is the next meeting. So just so you know, that's where annexations will go one more council meeting.
So I do have a question. As far as the annexations and the city council, I was talking to you in the break. I feel like this is a lose-lose situation to some extent for the city and the people being annexed right now. I feel like neither one of them really, the city's going to lose money on it. The people don't want it. Why can't this be a situation where you give them like a year or two and say you will be annexed at this time and possibly use that to kind of get people used to it and maybe set it up to where it could be a win-win at that point?
Sure, you're right. I mean, immediate on the front end of this deal, it is lose-lose. This is not a money grab by the city. This is, and it's, as we talked about earlier, it's painful for the residents. So we do have some. We have worked on. There's agricultural exemptions based on this that would do what you'd say Matt, and we've also worked on a zoning that will come into play later, the rural residential.
Can we get to this phone call?
Oh, yes,
We got
I'm
time?
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, this is, let's see, we have Chris here on line one. Can you hear? Hello, Chris.
Try it and let's see if I can hear.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hey, I don't even live outside the city limits. I'm not in these non-annexation areas. I actually live in Mr. Massengale's district. So my view on this whole annexation is if we don't do it, Lubbock's fine. We're still going to grow. We're still going to prosper. And this really goes against our most basic founding principle as a nation, where we were founded on against taxation without representation. Now, I can understand the points where they say it's not a money grab, but these people will be levied property taxes that will be money coming in. I'm surprised no one has proposed, or they may have, and I missed it, that the people in the annexed areas would be exempt from property taxes until that property changes hands. That way the next person who buys that property will know it would be annexed. And I think that would be a fair compromise to the city and to those people being annexed.
So, to your point about the exemptions, there are ag exemptions built in. I mean, there's a lot of people that in these areas that if they have the ag exemption that they're exempt. And remember, I mean, Lubbock's not doing anything that any other city in Texas doesn't or hasn't done, and Lubbock has done many times, and we're following the state law as we move through these annexations. The difference is, and you're right, we will grow, but will it be controlled and developed growth? If you don't look at these areas have been identified as the ones that need the control, need the zoning as we grow into them. You wouldn't be able to control that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I understand the part that's legal. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that's legal. I mean, even last night after the annexation part failed, you guys could reconsider and vote to annex it after all those people left. That's legal. But there's things about what's right, what's conservative, and I just don't see anything that's beneficial or conservative or respectful to other Texans' property rights about the annexation.
Understood.
Understood.
I appreciate your opinion.
Okay. Chris, thank you for listening
call.
and thanks for calling, okay? We got time to take a quick break here? Okay. We'll take a break and be right back. 7:56 a.m., and we're back for 2 or 3 minutes here. And in the time we have left, we will turn it over to Councilman Massengale to kind of wrap it up this morning.
Well, thanks, Dave. I think I just want to encourage people to get out and exercise their right to vote during the local elections. You've got school board elections that are important. You do have a couple of contested council races. Councilman Chattis and the mayor have opponents. And we have this we have the issue of the Auditorium Coliseum. And I would encourage people to get the facts. And I would caution them on any editorial opinions they see out there and make sure that they understand the whole situation. I believe that building has outlived its useful life. It's difficult for me to support any continued investment in that building, and I think it is the best move to go ahead and convey it back to Texas Tech, which is our only option. We don't have the option to sell it. We don't have the option to sell it to anyone else. There's state law. There's legislation that circles this that was created when Tech gave the land to the city for the city to build a facility. So anyway, I know everyone's busy. I know it's easy not to go vote, but I would encourage people to go vote. I believe early voting ends Tuesday. I think that's
I'm not
right.
Sure. I know that the actual vote's Saturday.
Saturday the 5th.
Yeah, the 5th. I do have one quick question. Do you think that if people vote to keep the Coliseum and the Auditorium, will it be back on the ballot in 3 years to get rid of it?
I think it would be premature for me to say that. I think if that happens, I think that it will have to have a community conversation about what we do with that building. If the community wants to reinvest in it, how we fund that. Again, it'd be hard for me to take on debt to fund that. I just don't know that I could wrap my head around that. I don't know that that's makes good sense, but it would start that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's as we have discovered this morning, there is plenty of anger out there in the citizenry about the Coliseum Auditorium, and I'm not sure that it's well founded. I really do have this belief that there's a lot of editorial comment that's coming in that is just not. It's not fair and it's not accurate, and it has got a lot of people riled up unnecessarily. And I think maybe there's some politics at play. I don't know exactly
Could be.
Exactly what it's all about, but it doesn't make any sense. And people need to go look at the facts on their own. Now, annexation, yeah, I understand people that move to the county, they want to live out there by themselves. I got that. But the city is going to grow, and it's eventually going to have to take you in, whether it's now or whether it's later. Okay, we're out here. Thanks for coming in and sharing with us this morning, Councilman.
Always, it's a pleasure, gentlemen.
It's 8 o'clock. We'll be back with more after this.